Not the most important story here today, but it's going to be quite entertaining at least, brief as it is. I'll show you all that in a moment, but if you don't mind, quick announcement first. For the few people out there that might be wondering, maybe you noticed the member video I made last night is gone, and that's because, just to explain for the people out there that might be wondering about that, I noticed something when I tested my own join button out. It paused whatever video people were watching and then played that video, and that just seems inconvenient. I don't want to interrupt what you're watching when you click that, so that was what I had to do. Unfortunately, I had to remove the video, so now at least when people click join, it won't stop whatever they're watching, because yeah, I think that would probably be annoying for some people. I know, in my opinion, it's annoying, so there you go. Its join button still works though. I just now have it so it won't pause the video you're watching if you do click it. And I do appreciate those of you who have became channel members. Yeah, it's great. Anyways, let's take a look at today's video. So here we go. We're taking a look at Eddie R of Rooster Teeth and RWBY. Wow, that's coincidental. Anyways, Eddie R over here apparently had some criticism or saw some criticism online regarding a scene in Chapter 1 of RWBY Volume 7 where, let me explain for those of you who haven't seen it, the main cast is walking through this city known as Mantle, and out of a bar stumbles a drunken man who throws a racial slur, at Blake, who is a Faunus, and Faunus are discriminated against in Mantle, in Atlas, and over Remnant, but mostly in Atlas and Mantle for the most part. Some places they're not. Anyways, so in response, one of the cast members, WEISS, uses her semblance to cause a gravity glyph to levitate the dude into the air, and she throws him into the trash bin. And that's what this is about. So let's read here. He says, Internet Person says, but should WEISS have thrown that racist guy in the trash? He was just, and I guess this guy doesn't post the rest of this because he says, me, immediately closes tab. And this is one of the writers, again, for Rooster Teeth and RWBY, if I didn't mention that already. I think I did, though, but just to be sure, let me get that out there. So then he adds this. I'm all for commentary, criticism, discussion. I devour like all of it. And I'm so curious to see how people's opinions of this volume evolve or solidify over time. But this was a weird-ass take, y'all. Sometimes I see takes that make me go, it's a bummer here, she feels that way. I hope future chapters rectify that for them. Sometimes I go, I didn't think of that, good point. Sometimes I go, I disagree with that. And sometimes I'm like, that's a yikes for me, dog. Anyway, I don't plan on responding to much RWBY discussion at all this volume. Doesn't look like he responded to the criticism he got for this tweet, by the way. We'll have more on that in a moment. And says, until maybe after it's over and people have the full thing to digest and comments on as they see fit. But that was a surprising one. Well, it's not as surprising as it's implied by Eddie when you go through the comments. And you see some very good points that were being made by certain members of the fandom, so to speak. And this is one such comment. In response to the original tweet, Internet Person, should WEISS have thrown the guy in the trash, blah, 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 blah. You get this user who writes, Blake should have thrown that racist WEISS in the trash in Volume 1 then. So there's one good take, because back in Volume 1, yes, WEISS was very intolerant towards Blake and was hating on Blake. Another, crew member there explained who Blake is, the Faunus who had that incident. And yeah, WEISS never did that to Blake, Blake never did that to WEISS. So that's an interesting point. But perhaps even more interesting is one we'll get to from Adele, a.k.a. shouts out at the bottom of this. But first, there's also this comment that says, I think people are saying this is because you just your show just went through an entire subplot with the Faunus telling the other Faunus, don't use violence to get equal rights, only to then use violence against a drunk scumbag. Contradictory messaging, IMO. So you got a few good points here already. And then if it wasn't contradictory enough, you have this wonderful tweet from Adele who says, I genuinely love the new issue of RWBY by DC Comics. If only the show had this nuance. If you want to show me WEISS strong ideals, why not show her try to attack a racist she knows will stomp her ass instead of attacking weaklings she knows can't do jack shit. So he's referring to this scene from Volume 6, the one right down here. So let me read these memes and I'll explain. So WEISS attacks defenseless drunk person. WEISS doesn't attack Caroline because she has an army with her. So yes, this is another very flawed thing in the storytelling there, because it's true. They're at this military base in Volume 6, and Blake the Faunus here on the right. For those of you that aren't looking, Blake has cat ears, Faunus have animal traits, and that's part of why they get discriminated against by certain people in the show, in Remnant. And yeah, Caroline was definitely being quite intolerant to Blake in this scene. Nobody did anything. WEISS didn't do anything about it. No one did anything. Yeah, because probably she is an Atlas officer or special ops or whatever it was. You know, that's not important. What's important is that she didn't do anything, and there was an army there. So yeah, the implication is, you know, WEISS only attacked this dude because defenseless and drunk and weak. And look at her being all smug while she does it, man. You know, I'm not here standing up for the racist guy, but I have to point out that I do agree with Adele's take here. It's a bad look, man. It's just like kind of embarrassing, you know? And I don't think Eddie replied. At least when I checked, Eddie had not replied to any of these. So you have, you know, 3 different pretty good points there. One regarding the contradictory messaging, don't use violence, and then there you go, WEISS does use it. This other one, of course, mentioning how previously Blake should have been more aggressive to WEISS, if that's the point that they're trying to make. And then finally, the one we just talked about with the memes and everything, Caroline Cordovan. So yeah, that's pretty funny. And I would have liked to have seen what Eddie would have responded to, but I guess he had nothing. Now, on a note about writers, but slightly different note, something weird going on in the credits, man. I don't know if any of you guys have noticed this or if you can explain this. So from Chapter 1 credits, the first 2 pages of credits, it says, directed by KERRY SHAWCROSS, created by Monty written by Miles Luna and KERRY SHAWCROSS. So, you know, Eddie isn't mentioned in the written by portion, but he is mentioned in story by. So supervising director KERRY SHAWCROSS, story by Monty, KERRY, Miles, Eddie, and Kiersey. Who Kiersey, man? She's, you know, if you go to her social blade, look her up on Twitter, Kiersey Buckhart, go to her social blade, you'll see a bunch of tweets were deleted shortly after I believe she got brought on with Rooster Teeth. But regardless of the timing, I might be wrong about that. Regardless, though, the main point is that she deleted a bunch of tweets. And unfortunately for her, those pictures are still out there. And oh my gosh, you want to talk about intolerance? You should see some of the stuff this writer has tweeted out. Very disturbing stuff indeed. And anyways, so I'll talk about that in another video. Chapter 2 credits, sticking on the credit stuff in the oddity here. So Chapter 2, first 2 pages, directed by Connor Pickens, series created by Monty written by Kiersey Buckhart, supervising director KERRY SHAWCROSS, story by Monty, KERRY, Miles, Eddie, Kiersey. So Chapter 2 written by Kiersey, Chapter 1 written by Miles and KERRY, and story by, you know, all of them. The story part is the same in both chapters, but they shifted around, like the first page written by, which I don't know if that's normal or not. Maybe it is. I'm not involved in animation and writing, things like that. So I don't know, man. Maybe that's normal, but it did seem a little bit odd to me. Let me know what you think about that in the comments below, as well as the overall story. As I said, man, it's not the most important one, but it is amusing. It is amusing, and that's all I got for this one.